Welcome to the Four Peaks Parents Podcast with Thomas Miller. Are you tired of your tweens, teens, and young adults' negative behaviors and poor choices holding you emotionally hostage, controlling your family, and ruling your life? Do you feel like you're riding an emotional roller coaster every time you walk into your house? If you answered yes, then you're in the right place. This podcast is a community for courageous parents just like you who come here to gain effective tools, skills, and learn concrete action steps that they can take to be more confident, calmer, and more empowered while parenting and changing their tween, teen, or young adult's life and improving their family's future. Welcome to the Four Peaks Parents Podcast with your host, Thomas Miller. Today's topic is how to prevent one kiddo's behavior from negatively affecting the other. And again, I didn't come up with this. I'm so happy. I'm like on cloud nine because the reason why I started this podcast was to help parents that I couldn't otherwise reach through my coaching practice or the Four Peaks Parents program or whatever, right? So that's why I'm just trying to serve and be a servant leader here and give it away to keep it to as many parents as possible. Hence this podcast, hence my newsletter, hence the Four Peaks Parents program, right? And hence coaching parents. So to have a parent who signed up for my newsletter and then hit me up with this great question, and now it's a topic that's going to hit so many other ears, is just the coolest thing on earth. And just to thread this a little bit further, this parent, of course, it's completely confidential, not going to share anything about them, but they're basically saying that they have a child that models and exhibits some pretty dysregulated, unhealthy stuff. And, whether you have a child who's on the spectrum or not on the spectrum, and the spectrum meaning the autistic spectrum, whether you have a child that has mental health, true mental health as in diagnosed, whether it's, disruptive mood disorder, whether it's, anxiety, OCD, and we have another child that may or may not present with any of those things and be what's called neurotypical or potentially just healthy. We really want to think about the legacy of those behaviors. And whether you realize it or not, you're basically like on the spot, like your parenting is really giving a runway for how that next kiddo is going to act. So if you have another child, 2 children, 3 children, 4 or 5, obviously, right? The impact of how you are parenting, particularly if it's the oldest, which is why, unfortunately, the oldest often, has the highest expectations, but irrespective of the order, and we can actually talk about birth order in another episode. There's actually some cool things that happen there. But it's really, 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 really such a great topic. I will never forget. This is probably like 7 years ago. I'm in my therapy practice. I'm doing a family therapy session. My client she was 16, 15 maybe. And the older brother was addicted to heroin. And understandably, right? I get it. That family got turned into an emergency room every single freaking day with the older brother who was in the house. And I was empowering this girl who took on kind of like a superhero role and was almost like too perfect to actually begin to advocate for herself and begin to recognize that she too has needs and that she shouldn't just compartmentalize and stuff her own needs and be the silent little helper every single day or the rescuer, caretaker of that family or of that brother. And we're doing this family session, and eventually she has this big breakthrough where she goes, what do I got to do? Freaking heroin in this family to get my needs met, And that was so, you could hear a pin drop. The parents' faces turned white, and to their credit, thank God, they were like, yeah, I get it. Like we really have, we've been overly focused over here, right? And kind of neglected her. So this is a really important topic. What you have to understand is they're going to play many roles, right? So there is definitely the kid that is going to externalize all their behaviors, right? And that sometimes is easy, ironically, for the system, whether that's the social worker, the school counselor, the parents, the administrators, whoever of the school, to see, wow, that's a kid in need. But that little silent helper kiddo is also at risk as well. The superhero kid who, believe it or not, is going to poop a diamond, who's a perfectionist. I had this family I'm working with, just started with, who is freaking out because she has like a 4.6 or something instead of a 5.0, which I don't even know how you get a 5.0. I have no idea with all this weighted stuff. And to their credit, thankfully, they recognize this is not healthy and they're not getting bought into every little crisis. And they're doing a wonderful job of taking space and detaching from her outcome. There's also the lost child in a family that is kind of off to themselves and maybe is deep into fantasy or deep into art, or just in a way looks, oh my God, they're amazing at self-soothing. And that might be true on some level, but that imagination is also could be an escape hatch for them. There's also, again, the rescuer and the caretaker, the kid that's trying to parent that older child, or it could be the older kid trying to parent the younger kid. So understand that all these roles are getting cemented every day in your family. And I always say to the families that go through the Four Peaks Parents program, you're the guardian of the galaxy. You really are. You're the guardian of your culture. And every day you have to gargle the culture, right? Your family culture is the client, if you will, not just, that one child or the concern. We have to constantly think about the whole system, not just that one kiddo. So I know you've probably tried 85 different things and you're like, no matter what the hell I try, Thomas, it's a mute point. Like that other kid, whether younger, older, whatever, who's modeling negative behavior, again, whether because they have ADHD and are neurodivergent, or, have depression, have anxiety, have OCD, whatever it is, it's all pointless. All right, we got to change that. Okay. You have to immediately right now view yourself as a freaking warrior. I tell all the families I work with, you are a badass. Like, you have to assume that mantle. I'm a badass. I'm a superhero. I'm a super heroine, right? I'm a good person. No matter how much the toothpaste is out of the tube right now, and definitely some negative modeling has ensued, right? And some stuff might be kind of hard baked now in the system. Believe it or not, you are a badass. Believe it or not, you can rally. Believe it or not, today can be the new starting point, right? We're coming up on the new year. Amazing opportunity to really recognize 2025 as like, this is the year of me stepping in. And badass doesn't mean yelling, screaming. I'll get into what that means. But that just means stepping into courage and really assuming this mantle of, I'm going to lead this family freaking forward. All right. So that's super important. My soccer coach used to scream across the field at me. I was a stopper. That's how old I am. Stopper is now called CDM for any soccer parents out there. You know what the hell I'm talking about. So I was a stopper. And I used to like carry the ball, which is good, but sometimes try to take on people a little bit too much. And he would scream, "Kiss," which always sounds weird, right? When a Italian man is yelling "kiss" at a teenager. But he was a very appropriate. It was totally an appropriate thing. And he was referring to the acronym of Keep It Simple, Stupid. Big shout out to Don Russo, by the way, if you're still out there, Coach Russo, appreciate you. So again, you're a badass. You have so much more power than you realize. Like I already said, everyone's watching. So believe it or not, like, the work you're going to do on the front end is going to suck. Let's be real. Like, it's going to be hard if you have, this wild stallion amongst your other kiddos, and you're going to try to take the reins. Now you're going to get bit and kicked. But believe it or not, you got to think about the ROI, the return on the investment is about the future of your family and those 2, 3, whatever other kids who are watching. And every day they're like, this is how we get our needs met in this family, right? We just debate for 22 minutes and then mom or dad caves, or we just get scary and then mom or dad caves, our parents cave, right? We just do this, right? And then they give in. So number one, because you're a badass now, you got to remember you're a badass, right? I'm going to say the word badass 17 times. Don't give in and cave. No matter what they're doing, right? If you let them win, it teaches them that freaking whatever. right? Insert negative behavior works. If you think about a capital J, okay, like a capital J, right? It's got that little like line on the top. If we were to write on the top of that J a behavior and see how it goes down, the behavior, right? The J goes down and then it kind of hooks back up, kind of like an umbrella. That is how you actually exhaust behavior. But guess what? When the behavior is going down, sometimes we don't recognize that it's decreasing. So, one of the things in the Four Peaks Parents program is I have parents literally write on the top of a J, giving you some free stuff here, right? Whatever that is, debating, right? Manipulating, avoiding doing their homework, avoiding doing their chores, entitlement, talk back, push back, whatever. Guess what? It's going down, and we need to recognize it's going down and feel it and see it and positively call it out for both ourselves and the other kids, as well as, of course, our son or daughter who's engaging in those things. But so many families, unfortunately, that I work with, when the behavior spikes back up, that little hook, if you could see it, see a J, see the hook of the umbrella, that's when they give in because they're like, this stupid intervention isn't working. Meanwhile, my shit is great that I've given them and it is working. The Four Peaks program is effective. I know it. We have so many amazing testimonials right now. It's so cool. And then they give in and I'm like, oh my God, we decreased that behavior by like 50 freaking percent. So don't cave. Okay. The other key thing, so you don't drive yourself insane with this one, child that's taking up all the space in the system. What are the one or two behaviors that you want to change? And you got to be willing to die on that freaking hill. Like, what is that? No more than two, just one or two. And start obviously with one. The other thing is, if you remember, right, does your kid have a PhD in button pushing, a previous episode? If you expose your buttons to this manipulative kid, this, dysregulated kid that you have, who of course you love, let's not forget that. We love this person, right? But they're annoying as hell and we love them. These behaviors are annoying as hell. You got to remain calm and diffuse your button board because they will push every little button, right? That's where taking space is so important. One of the things, trust me, my kids have totally escalated me and I've lost my crap. I don't know if I mentioned on a previous episode the egg incident, but the egg incident is pretty infamous in the Miller house. I'll tell you real quick. I was making crepes. I had everything set up. It was beautiful. Oh my God. I had like the apples cut up. I think I even had like pinoli nuts. I was like really going for like Pinterest dad of the year, I think. And we had strawberries and blueberries and pecans and shredded coconut and all this stuff. And I was making crepes, these not savory, sweet crepes. And all I did was ask my kids to like set the table. And they kept coming over and like eating the apples and eating the thing and grabbing this and grabbing that. And then they got in this crazy fight. And I was like, you guys want crepes? That's it. You could have the crepes. And like shoved everything kind of like into the like against the counter. And of course, naturally the eggs broke and then they start dripping down the counter. And yeah, so this guy here who is a parenting expert and has modeled a bazillion and one fantastic, amazing regulated moments. I've lost my shit so many times as well as a parent. So it's really important, right? We diffuse that button board. Side note, by the way, every now and again, my oldest, when he wants to really piss me off, when we're at a diner or something, he's like, oh, Dad, maybe they're making crepes. Maybe you should go in the back and like help them make crepes and start smashing things up, Dad. Speed it up, Dad. So the other thing is you got to praise positive choices of either child, particularly the kiddos who are being like amazing, right? Like, and that's not to be provocative and be like, oh, look at so-and-so. Why can't you be like so-and-so, right? Older kid or younger kid who's making poor choices. But it's super important that everyone gets caught being good in the house. We got to change it's like changing, I always say to the parents I'm working with, you got to change the goggles. You got to change you can't just be in the woods with the binoculars looking to catch them being bad. You have to really every day hit the reset button, clean it out, which is really hard, right? So as much as you can, don't just be like, good job, right? Be really specific, right? Nice job calming down. Like, great job letting that go. Did you just see that? Like, your brother was being super provocative and you just like totally walked away. That was fantastic. Or your sister was like really trying to egg you on and you just like didn't take the bait. That was fantastic. Or it looks like, you're doing a much better job, like just hanging out together, right? Do you guys realize you just went 7 minutes without killing each other and actually shared the controllers of Fortnite or whatever that is. So that's really important. And again, you want to catch the person who's struggling being good as well as the other kiddos. What behaviors are we ignoring? All right. In addition to those one or two that we're focusing on, guess what? We got to pick a few we're going to ignore, right? What are the minutia, the sprained ankle, the ones that are minor that we are going to ignore? Because if we get in this negative feedback loop of reacting to every little thing, that's just going to decrease the dynamic, and your kiddo is going to have no incentive to want to change because they're going to feel judged all the freaking time. Another thing that parents do all the time, big mistake, I've done this too. We can't rationalize with an irrational person. Let's just let that go. Let's wait until they're calmer, right? And there's another time. So, couple of things. In addition to Avi, right, negative consequences, which we'll get into, let's spend some time being proactive. You could do this with your partner, whether you're a single parent, do it by yourself, whatever your deal is, right? I always have parents I work with say, what's the trigger map? And I have them identify what is the A plus B that equals C, right? What is the cause and effect? What are the precursors or antecedents? And they really need to like map that out and figure that out so they can be, right, proactive. The other thing that we forget to think about is what is the cause and effect of when things go well. So I always have parents do a trigger map, but then like a positive map, right? Like what was the parenting interaction that went well and why did it go well? Maybe it was our tact and tone or our timing or this or that. So a couple quick no-nos. Do not call things out from a distance. I am guilty of that. Yelling upstairs, knock it off. Yelling downstairs, stop the crap, right? Not effective. We got to get proximal and face-to-face. We got to enter the world of our kids. That way that kid that is the quote unquote identified, let's say, troublemaker or identified problem or manipulator in the situation doesn't feel like you're just always siding with the other kid or vice versa. And the kid that normally, let's say, is more regulated or behaves better could actually be, have some blood on their hands, if you will, in this interaction. So let's get there. We got to stay away from assuming your kids know what to expect. I am so guilty of this. I'll be like, just clean your room, Meanwhile, my 12-year-old doesn't understand what the hell clean your room means, right? So I have to know my kids' learning style. Are they visual learners, verbal learners? If they're visual, maybe we need some whiteboarding, some sticky notes. Big fan of shooting videos. I do that all the time. I shoot videos with action steps and send it to my kids. It's amazing the cool stuff we could do with tech nowadays that you couldn't otherwise do. It's super important to chunk things down, right? For my youngest, cleaning your room sounds like, dude, can you go take the sheets off your bed and then like bring them and put them in the hamper? Nice. That's awesome, right? Versus clean your room. He's not going to know what the hell that means. So do not assume your kids know what to expect. It's really important to front load that. This is a classic that I do all the time, transitioning without warning. So parents a lot of times got a lot going on, myself included, but transitions are hard for kids. If we're dealing with a kiddo who's on the spectrum, even more so, right? Those transitions are going to be that much harder. So we really have to respect, right, our kiddos' timelines, whether that's they're in the midst of doing something or we just asked them to do this thing and now we're switching over here and toggle switching. If a kiddo is ADHD, they might have got micro-tasked on something or become a little inattentive. So we really got to try to avoid the transitioning without warning and make sure that we're really understanding, right, how difficult that can be. Rapid fire questions, demands, instructions, terrible, 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 right? It's so much better to have small, incremental, winnable things, right? Can you go and do this? Can you guys just take space for 5 seconds or 5 minutes, right? Can you each go and do this task? Do you want to do it together? Do you want to do it separate? Give your kids a choice, like structured choices. Big fan of the words before and after. So to the both of them, two brothers, two sisters, brother and sister, be like, look, here's the deal, right? If you go back to, again, don't assume, make the expectations clear. We're getting ready to, set up the table, right? Would you rather, do this or that? You can give them choices around, do you want to set the table or clean the table? Would you rather take a shower after or before we have dinner? Right? Give them that sense of control. Engage them. Set it up for them too. Can they actually negotiate? How do you two want to handle, or three want to handle this situation? We are going out. We are going to go on a date. Believe it or not, there's this thing called dates, and we're going to do it. How do you want this evening to go? What do you think is doable for all three of you? Really try to engage them and set them up with rewards that are actually things they want, right? Don't give rewards that are things that clearly you want, right? So it's really important to give them structured choices and set them up for success. I've mentioned a bunch of no-nos. I want to give some good consequences, right? Positive attention. And again, realize that even if you have a child that's engaging all these dysregulated things, and you're allowed, between you and me, to say that at times you want to avoid them. Okay, that's all right. That doesn't mean you're a horrible parent. We all have feelings as parents. There are moments where like, oh, bracing for impact. That's okay. But to change that, remember, because you are right, superhero, superheroine, badass, right? You're a leader, right? You're a warrior. We want to give positive attention, right? What are they really into? As hard as it is when I go into my kids' room and they're on their phone, as much as I want to like, oh my God, like slap the phone out of their hand or like totally react or make a horrible assumption, if I can just be like, yo, what are you looking at? Right? Oh, who are you listening to? Oh, what is that game? How do you play that game? And sit next to them on the floor, on the bed, right? Be in alignment with them. Learn a little bit more about that. Like, oh, that's pretty cool. That's kind of fun. You do realize, though, I did ask you to like whatever aspect, depending upon the age. I got a 14 and a 12-year-old. Clean your room, right? So this kind of it goes against that, right? Can we get back on track? That ability, though, to give positive attention and join is going to get me going so much more. Again, ignore actively, right? Again, what are the active choices you're ignoring so you're not constantly creating a negative feedback loop? Engage them all the time in rewards. Like what would you want to work for? What would mean something? Like if you two were like to have a positive interaction for the next hour and you were going to actually be more supportive and allow your brother to play that game or be kinder to your sister or your sister, be kinder to you, what would be cool things that you want? Big fan of timeouts. Timeouts are not punitive. They're just an opportunity for reset. Huge fan of like calling it out for yourself too. You're not a bad parent if you say, hey, I'm realizing I'm getting a little cooked right now. I'm getting crispy. I'm about to say some crap that I really wish I hadn't or might, don't want to say. I'm going to take some space. I think we all should take some space. Let's break this up, right? Let's try again. Let's start this day over again. Super important. The other big thing is like family bonding, right? What do these two or three, whatever the dynamic is, kids actually enjoy? Can we create something positive? And again, don't think like we're going to the Grand Canyon for a week if right now you have a pretty hostile dynamic or you have a pretty dysregulated teen or tween or young adult who, again, takes up a lot of space, is super negative and, is not getting out of bed for whatever. That's not going to be realistic. But can you all go, I don't know, to the movies? Can you do a bowling thing? Can you play the Wii at home? Can you play FIFA? Can you play Uno? I don't know. Can it be 30 minutes and you get pizza and you engage everybody and it's kind of fun? Can we create this corrective emotional experience that becomes a memory for the family that begins to shift that? And praise, 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 praise like crazy. We want to constantly catch them being good, right? Constantly catch them being good. And here's how you can use consequences really fast, right? We do not want to give delayed consequences. You got to understand, kiddos, everything has got to be right now. They have short attention span theater. They're going to forget if you give a consequence on a weekend. Make sure the consequence is timely. Make sure that it's proportional, right, to whatever the crime, right? It's got to fit the crime. The other thing I see parents doing all the time is, myself included, getting sucked in. It's called the escalation principle. One kid's escalating, it's escalating us. Next thing you know is they're getting escalated, we're getting escalated. Now we're yelling, now we're getting dysregulated, now we're getting sucked in. We're giving in negative attention. Believe it or not, we're reinforcing this is who our family is. This is becoming familiar. And again, kids actually seek the familiar. So if you have that as a dynamic, that it's a chaotic, dysfunctional poke and prod, everyone pokes the bear, and the next thing you know, mom or dad yells and screams, and it's like we all kind of get that let down and let off in a way from actually shifting the change or the behavior or the dynamic. We got to change that. So again, that's where positive reinforcement comes in, positive reframing, catching people being good, and just really avoid getting sucked into giving negative attention. And the last thing I want to say is do not do the work. Remember, you are a warrior. So often families accommodate and they set something that is a clear expectation. And then because that teen, tween, whoever, young adult, again, tends to rule the roost and rule the show, the family just, I'll just do it just to get through it. But again, we have to think about what is the ROI for our younger kids. Little feet are soon to follow, little ears, little eyes, they're coming up behind us. So we got to always think about, right? Again, what is the ROI and the legacy of how we're interacting today for the little kids coming up? Or if the little kid is the one that's running roughshod and running the show, the older kid is getting exhausted and they're going to unconsciously pull away from that child or the family and again go underground. And we don't want the older kid, right, to be the little Miss Perfect or Mr. Perfect. And we never want to assume they're okay. So please, please, please check in. Please ask open-ended questions. And then let's have open and honest dialogue about where we are as a family and where we want to go, particularly with the new year just around the corner. I hope everybody has an amazing, safe holiday. I hope you have time to put your feet up for a hot second. Please, please, please don't put all these Pinterest perfectionistic expectations on yourself as a mom or dad. Whatever it is, make sure you find time to rejuvenate, increase your self-care. And I hope you have a restful, rejuvenating holiday and that you hit the ground running in 2025. Thanks so much and be well. Hey everyone, Thomas here. First off, it means the world to me that you took the time to listen to my podcast. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Also, if you want to receive the latest podcast updates, as well as expert parenting tips and practical strategies for navigating your tween, teen, or young adults challenges directly to your inbox, then sign up for my newsletter. The link is in the description. And most importantly, if you're tired of feeling overwhelmed, stuck, stressed, and are losing sleep because you're constantly worried about your tween, teen, or young adult, your first step is to realize that you still have a choice and can do something about it. I'm ready to help you take action and create the results you desire today. Just go to fourpeaksparents.com and book a free strategy call. Let's do this. Last thing, while you were listening to this show, who was the one person that you thought could really benefit from hearing it? Please share it with them.